Okay, whew. I'm gonna take a little shake. This is big, and I am mic'd now. Oh my goodness. Hi guys, I am Kirsten, not Kristen. I am so excited to be here with everyone. A huge thank you to Dash for having me here. The speakers ahead and after me, oh my goodness, I am inspired. I am in awe. Like, thank you for letting me be in this space with you. As I said, I am Kirsten. I am the managing executive producer at Scholar. That is also true what Corey told you. I didn't like the first title option, so I did make that up. But if you're wondering what this title means, my role is all about building and bolstering relationships. So I'm trying to find new opportunities both for our creatives and for our studio to grow. And if you haven't heard about Scholar, we're an awesome collective of human beings, not computers, driven by curiosity. We love to blend our artistry with emerging techniques and specialize in telling stories that rely on concepting and our crafts to engage our viewers on an emotional level. And I would love to just share a little bit of what we actually do.
Okay, so what's new?
Before, it's never been done like this. Everything feeling so crisp. You got the bait, you got the swish. Everything looking like love with the twist. I'm on top. You can take the elevator, running on high. Put me in the refrigerator. All y'all attention on me. All on me. All y'all attention on me. Watch. 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 Watch how I do it. Watch. 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 Show you how I do it. You can be my student. Let's get started moving. Yeah, that's an improvement. Watch how I do it. Watch how I do it. Yeah, we just start a movement. Watch how I do it. Watch. 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 Watch.
Wow. Thank you guys. I feel the same way. I'm so honored to be a part of this amazing studio and be here today representing them. So when I started thinking about the Bash and what I wanted to talk about, this idea and concept of balance kept rising to the top. And I feel like a lot of folks have actually touched on this, which is super awesome to just hear that it's not just me in my head thinking about this. But as a society, we've kind of embraced this hustle culture, right? And it so quickly just consumes us, and it ultimately leads to burnout. I feel like balance is a super essential part of our lives, right? Like, it's just as important in our personal lives as our professional lives. And so many people aren't comfortable actually advocating for that and asking for what they need. So in my role, I like to think about balance holistically, right? So there's this delicate balance in our industry between like where our work comes from, where does it originate, like what that work's going to entail to create, and then ultimately how that work actually comes down from a client, an agency, a brand into a studio. Some projects are really smart to take on, right? They're financially lucrative. Maybe they're gonna create a new relationship, or they're gonna build on an existing relationship. Or maybe it's just something that would be awesome for the studio reel. It's just super creative and oh my gosh, we've been waiting for this. Then there's also this question of, great, we have this opportunity, but how are we gonna distribute that? We have staff, we have freelancers, and those conversations can impact your work-life balance as one of those artists, producers, members of these teams. So as someone who loves having a plan, and I typically have like 7 plans going at one time, just in case one derails, I've had to embrace, and it's taking a very long time for this, that some things are just really out of my control. But if I try to have a really good attitude, if I establish boundaries for myself, if I say no, that includes to my studio, to my friends and family, to clients, believe it or not, and I allow that space for growth, I'm ultimately happier and I've found success. So I want to tell you guys a little bit more about myself. This is an awesome photo of me after graduation. Also, my mom is here again to support me. She's over there. because moms are gonna mom. Thank you. And that is the first web bio, which is so pixelated. I'm so sorry, guys, for my first staff job, which actually I was rereading it, and it truly tracks for me as a person. I would actually move sweatpants up to the #1 spot under cupcakes, but this is still me as a human being, which is amazing. So yeah, I started my professional career at Digital Kitchen as a motion design intern. I went to SCAD. I have degrees in animation and motion media design. I am a secret artist. Surprise. But after graduating and getting this internship, it didn't take me long to realize that I did not want to be a motion designer. So good thing I spent a lot of time studying that and a lot of money going to college for that. Here's the thing though, this internship that I got at Digital Kitchen, this was my first taste of working in a creative agency. And this sounds insane to say, but it is the first time I realized that production lived outside of film and television, right? I was like, oh, producers, they have to have money to make the films. I don't have money, I can't do that. That is not the case. So I took advantage of this opportunity that I had, and I used that time to actually get to know how a studio works and get to know different folks in different departments. And so that ended up paying off, right? I was hired as their studio manager, and I was promoted to a production coordinator a few months after that. That first role that I did as a coordinator, that was for live action production. I had never been on a set before in my life before this. So I knew nothing about that role, but doing that, that's when I realized I love producing, right? And I just have not looked back. So that very much shifted my career, and what I do. So without that opportunity for me to actually learn about live action production, I would have never become a line producer. And it was becoming a line producer that actually led me back to a passion for design and animation, and I became a post-producer. That mix of career experience taught me to value creatives and also production talent equally, and think about my teams holistically too. Those experiences helped me understand all the ins and outs of production, and it also fueled my need for growth and also personal development. Believe it or not, producers actually have creative needs as well. We get bored working on the same projects, doing the same thing. I don't know if you realize that or not, it's true. But throughout these adventures that I've had in production, I've gotten to work on these globally recognized award-winning campaigns. I've worked with amazing top-tier industry-defining brands. And as insane as it to say, I celebrated 10 years at Scholar in February, which is wild. This is us. We are a band of misfits, my friends. We are chaos in a bottle. But seriously, I love all of these people deeply who are here on this page, and they are with me right here as I try to not mess this talk up, my deepest fear as well. EPs are afraid of talking publicly too. But seriously though, our studio, our culture, the people, it is easy for me to stay there. It's like I work with insanely talented artists. I have an amazing leadership team. We have grown together over these years, and we support each other, professionally, but also personally. We realize that a studio is people. We are people. This is our job, but we are human beings. So for me, when I think about a studio, right, and what a healthy and balanced studio is going to come down to, I think there's a few key things, right? There's having a passion and a curiosity for the work that you're doing. There's having effective communication, right? There's mutual respect. There's appreciation and also gratitude amongst teams, right? Knowing that we're all putting in this work together. And I think the ability to actually problem solve and be adaptive are another big key point. So in this talk with you guys, I'm gonna cover our industry, which is constantly changing, just a little shapeshifter. A crystal ball would seriously come in handy at times. If anyone has one, please let me know. The studio, where multiple teams who are coming together to execute one creative vision, is gonna make that end result just so much stronger. And then lastly, the individual, and how by taking the time to respect yourself and also think about your well-being can actually encourage people to also do the same for themselves. Oh, so our industry, oh my goodness. Guys, it's wild out there right now. Seriously though, in the 10 years that I've been at Scholar, I've witnessed a bunch of different shifts across our industry, right? I've seen brands going in-house and creating in-house teams instead of just relying on this agency model to do the work. I've seen a push for social first campaigns, but then actually making bespoke content for those users and for those screen sizes and those ratios. I'm sorry again to all the producers who now deliver everything at 50 ratios still to this day. There was this big push, 2020 happened, that was crazy. We all had to go home, right? And now suddenly it started with, I feel like, the brands, the agencies, and now studios are having this big push back. We need to be back in person. We need to do this in person. And now, the new hot button item, AI. What does that mean for artists, for studios, for our planet? What is going to happen here? So these shifts that we're seeing, they also appear in the different creative briefs that I see and that the studio sees. And I found that it's really essential, to be adaptive, right? Rather than reacting to this. It's so easy in that moment to just react. Like, what are we going to do? How is this going to happen? How is this going to affect us? But the reality is making those smart decisions that honestly are pretty tough in the moment. Typically, if you're having to make a very hard decision, it's probably the right decision. Setting yourself up for success, setting the studio up for success, rather than just quickly pivoting around, I have found that's what works. And when I am proposing things in these moments, I like to consider, of course, our studio and the work, but also our people. And I want to do right by both of those. So as a managing EP, I also need to know what's happening outside of just Scholar, right? This knowledge helps me make informed decisions about the best way to position our company and how to go after work. So as the industry is constantly evolving, I found that it's more important forever that I need to just, I need to respect the process of production. I need to respect my process that I've set forth for myself. And I really need to just trust my instincts as a leader. It's like we all have good instincts. We really do. I swear that's how we're alive today. So just know that, remember that. But it is becoming more and more common for us to see these big dynamic changes that are creating these ripple effects through advertising and creative production. And some of them are really cool and exciting, right? Like we're seeing these studios and production partners merging and creating these awesome new collectives and doing this really cool new groundbreaking work. And then we're seeing things that, were unexpected to, I think, a lot of us. It's like the mill shut down US operations earlier this year. That's insane to think of, that just isn't here. Looking again at where this work is coming from, more and more brands are investing in their in-house teams, right? And right now we are watching history in the making. Omnicom and IPG are merging. They are about to create the world's largest advertising and production company. Like, what does that mean for all of us? So again, all these things, they impact our industry, right? And ultimately it trickles down and affects what clients are asking. So I feel like more and more recently, I've been seeing clients after this holistic approach to a production, right? They're looking for a trusted partner to come in and handle everything soup to nuts, which, for Scholar, I love this. I have to ask publicly in this forum, can we come up with a better name than soup to nuts, please? Like, genuinely, if we could workshop this and maybe at the end we could just pivot and that's what we respond with in emails moving forward. But seriously though, it's a great approach, right? It keeps creative vision intact. It streamlines your process and it is more efficient for a budget. If budgets are shrinking, giving that all to one company to look at and move around is great. Modularity and workflows too. That is a trending request. It's funny because I feel like Scholar's always just been a modular, like that's how we work. So it's not really new for us. But again, it's like commercial content has all these different avenues for consumption and more and more and more. And clients want these smart solutions, but they also don't want to spend any more money. So it's like, how can we just make this idea go further and feel unique and bespoke and different? So as our clients' needs are shifting around, the way that Scholar responds to that needs to adapt. We take on a style agnostic approach to creation. We like to say that our media is not actually mixed, right? It's curated. It is a diverse expression of stories that's being told by multifaceted artists and processes, techniques, right? We take pride in being solution-driven, collaborative partners. And because of this, more and more recently, we're getting involved super early on, which is really exciting for us too as a studio. We're doing concept and strategy, things that I feel like people leaned on agencies for forever versus just like, here's a board, execute it. And one of my favorite aspects of my role is that I get to review all of this work coming into the studio, right? And I get to figure out the best way to actually approach this campaign. And there's several different factors that are going to go into those choices. And it's really rewarding when that work happens to maybe align with one of our lead's creative growth goals, a studio growth goal. Or when I get to find people who haven't collaborated in a minute and let them actually work together and just watch that magic unfold. Our ability at Scholar to curate these bespoke teams that propose unexpected creative pairings and that blend different skill sets and skill levels is the backbone of our studio. And it's also how we can balance a really wide range of work. And so something I wanted to share with you guys today is kind of like a mini case study on how multiple different teams, being style agnostic in our approach, and having an actually very collaborative and trusting direct brand partner helped us expand one brand's identity. We got a cold call from Zoom. That was pretty awesome. That they were looking for creative partners. They had some work, and they reached out to Scholar. So I was a part of those initial conversations. And during that, they're like, what are your capabilities? What can you guys do? We shared this wide range of work with them. We had 2D, we had 3D, we had design, illustration, animation. We had live action content. Well, they accepted the rose. We liked each other. And our collective teams, we hit it off. We partnered up pretty quickly after, which again, I'm just like, this was a dream. I didn't have to reach out to you. You would like to work with me. What? So we did this first campaign for Zoom One. And it was our job to demonstrate that Zoom One wasn't just this tool, right? It's a vital part of the bigger picture. It's making collaboration seamless. It's revolutionizing how teams are working together. This was also like right around like 2021, I want to say. So like we're very much all, maybe 2020, like figuring out how do we work from our homes? What does this mean? So makes sense. But in order to do this, we needed to build a team that had experience working direct to brand. It is a different workflow than working with an agency. We needed to be able to find folks that could take a loose idea, refine that script into an actual creative campaign. And then also propose mediums that were going to make sense to represent this product and experience, but they were also doable within kind of the restrictions of where we were in time, in the world. So together with Zoom, we ended up dreaming up this really awesome dynamic platform that is a vibrant dimensional space, fully 2D, 3D here. We created these really cool, unique Zoom characters. We helped to develop a visual language. We were able to incorporate some really sleek, fun, minimalistic UI, tactile textures. So again, a true fusion, design, illustration, 2D, 3D. And I would love to share that final spot with you guys really quick. I feel like this is like every creative in studio, but we love Easter eggs. So I smile every time because all of the characters are based off of all of the staff and artists that worked on the campaign too. And it's like their actual names in some cases. So I just like, oh my gosh, we went there. But yeah, that campaign actually kickstarted this whole new look for Zoom, right? And that evolved into a multi-year evolution of different styles. The next phase was a complete reinvention of the brand design and product guidelines, which is something we have, I would say recently, really started digging into a lot more, which is super cool. But we needed to further immerse ourselves in what this brand was, and we needed to understand where they wanted to go and how they wanted to portray themselves moving forward. So as that, collaborative creative ask changed, we had to also adapt our team. We needed leads who could effectively blend creativity, but also had really strong creative thinking skills and could heavily organize. We were able to flex our multidisciplinary skills. Once again, here on this, we rolled out this new design system, which included recommendations for type, color, deliverable use cases. But we also created a super cool multimedia campaign for the rebrand of Zoom Workplace. So we actually got to do the full creative concept script writing on this through completion, full job in-house at Scholar, not soup to nuts, not gonna say that again. But yeah, we were able to bring in the fundamentals of that first campaign into this really cool stylized dimensional physical space. And internally we decided to shake things up again. We retained some of those leads who had worked on Zoom One and the rebrand, but we also added on some new leads who could add a fresh perspective and also could add expertise in live action, direction, and also VFX. So we integrated that previously developed style into this dialogue-driven 360 campaign. Each of these physical spaces is inspired by an AI-powered feature and a real business scenario that merges some of that CG UI that we saw earlier into these live action spaces. And I would love to share that final spot really quick too.
Imagine an AI-powered collaboration platform that helps teams do more. Welcome to Zoom Workplace. Do people here spend time crafting their chats?
Not me.
Right like the wind, AI companion. Long voicemails magically become concise task lists. Boom, boom. Oh no, who took notes in this big meeting?
Summarized with AI Companion.
She's a pro. All on one AI-powered platform. It's Zoom Workplace.
Thank you guys. So yeah, I love this collection of work for a ton of reasons, right? But I think the biggest reason is that it really showcases the range and scale of our capabilities as a studio. And also it's a good reminder that by staying true to our ethos, trusting our process, building these bespoke teams, evolving alongside the creative, we were able to make a really wide range of content that was fulfilling for the folks working on it, but also for us as a company. And we still, get to work with these guys today on all sorts of new stuff, which is amazing. This is a relationship that's continuing to just go. This is an approach we've also taken, alongside agencies that are working for a brand too. For Porsche, that was originally this design-centric singular campaign that we did for the Porsche 911. And that's evolved into a multi-year and multi-level collaboration with all different Porsche models. Each one is a different technique that really harnesses the brand's personality and also kind of leans into the energy of each of those cars. But these campaign snippets are just a couple of examples of how company leadership, right, can help create balance in a studio by providing those different growth and collaboration opportunities for the folks within it. So as managing EP, I am part of that leadership team. And my top priority is cultivating an inclusive and supportive environment that accepts, growth and also acceptance. It takes commitment and it takes care and it takes empathy to actually foster a sense of belonging in your workplace, in your industry. And so in my role, I need to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that means occasionally having hard conversations. But in those moments, it's so important to me that our clients and my team are both walking away feeling confident, protected, and aligned on what we're doing together. And earlier I'd kind of mentioned this consideration of where is this work coming from and what happens once it lands in a studio? And how does a studio decide what's the best way to actually do this campaign? The reference says it's 2D, but it's actually completely 3D with a cell draw over. How do we tell them this? That's not gonna work for the budget or the timeline. So seriously, it might sound really simple from the outside, but behind the scenes, there are so many different people that have to come together to make a campaign successful. I'm on an EP team. I work with our reps, and we're trying to bring work into Scholar. We're trying to get work from agencies, brands. That is one side of this. On the other side here, CDs, ACDs, ADs, they're joining in on those initial conversations we might be having once we get a board in. And they're working alongside, EPs like myself, our heads of production, producers. They're building out a treatment if we're pitching this. They're creating a production plan alongside of us. They're thinking about who's our team gonna be if this job moves forward. Once that job does land with us, we need to continue to bolt on artists and sometimes specialty roles. And it's totally creative dependent, right? So this could mean storyboarders, 2D or 3D animators, editors, effects artists, lighters, compositors. If we're doing live action, that's line producers, an entire live action team, cinematographer, production designer, stylist, casting, the list goes on. And it's important to remember that at the beginning, you need to pay attention to those details, right? but the details at the end are so equally important. So, we're working with colorists, we're working with flame artists, we're working with audio houses to put those finishing touches on a campaign. None of this would happen without our tech team, who are truly the unsung heroes of Scholar. They keep us propelling forward, and it doesn't matter what we throw at them. And we throw so much insanity at these people. And then also our marketing team, who's always 10 steps ahead, planning the best time and place to share this work. And I will shout out Krista, our head of marketing, is here with me too. We are not worthy. But seriously, you won't believe how much she let me truly frame fuck this deck. You would think I am a creative. Thank you for that patience, my friend. That's my only F word, I promise. But seriously, that was the abridged version of what some of these things look like to make anything that you just saw here and things we've all been sharing. But for any team dynamic to be successful, they really just need to understand that everyone's voice really does matter and that a great idea can come from anywhere. So I found that it's easier to establish and maintain these healthy and respectful team dynamics when everyone truly does feel valued, seen, and heard. And that does really begin with treating, creative and production as equals. The roles are truly codependent, and not in a bad way. It's like, one really only works without the support of the other, the expertise of the other. Creatives and probably every producer's parents, except for my mom, she knows what I do, probably is like, what does a producer actually do then? Please tell me. You're always on the phone, you're always writing things, you always have these notes at the worst possible time. But seriously though, in simple terms, we're just trying to keep things positive and on track. We're trying to clearly communicate what is possible at each stage of our production process. We're trying to manage those expectations. We're also fearlessly advocating for you behind the scenes to keep that vision intact and get this thing made the way that we want to. And like any artistic medium, you have to remember that production is also a specialized craft, right? It is skills that are honed through time and years of experience. So I'm always voicing my opinion during a pitch and creative process, and I invite our producers to do the same. I'm the woman who shows up to dailies, everyone's like, who is she? And I create chaos, but it is like one good point, and then it ends up working out. That is me, if you've ever been on a call with me. But seriously, by blending that creative and production skill set, you're inviting both of those perspectives in, and also like your team is gonna be stronger, that creative vision is really gonna be stronger. I apply that same thinking when it comes to actually building these teams out, right? A balanced team needs various perspectives. It needs different voices. It needs different skill sets. It needs different skill levels. And that's why mentorship and actually investing in growth is so important. So the last area that I'm going to touch on today, since we're all sharing our sick baby photos, that's me too. And that's also me catching a lobster. Yeah. Different story for a different time. But seriously, it's actually probably the hardest because it requires us to stop judging ourselves and start actually respecting ourselves. So what does that mean? That means you need to unapologetically take time to self-focus. Respecting yourself means you need to set boundaries. You need to say no. You need to make time for self-care, and you need to actually advocate for what you need, which is like the simplest advice I think I've ever given anyone. But seriously, there's a very delicate balance between putting in the work, right? Working hard, and actually respecting yourself and taking care of yourself and reading your body. And I will be the first to admit, change is so hard. We all view change. I think, Reese talked about it the other night. It's a challenge, right? It's actually a growth opportunity. Change is wonderful. But we are creatures of habit. So most of what we're doing is actually just an old routine that we just fell into. We just haven't pivoted from. So by continually reevaluating your needs, you'll find that you are a bit more self-aware. You can maybe pinpoint opportunities to adapt a routine or create a healthier habit, and maybe achieve a better work-life balance. And I gotta say, guys, I was feeling real good about my work-life balance, right? I had spent past few years, COVID happened, and I was like, what is happening? I was a mess. Got myself back on track, and I was like, let's do this. I have a plan. This is working. I love it. And then this happened. So yeah, surprise. Really, I knew this was coming. But that's me at about 34 weeks pregnant in Minneapolis. That was my last sales trip with a baby. My OB yelled at me for traveling after this. I know it's a very, very awesome hotel room selfie that I took. Glad I got to share it. But seriously, and then that's me being admitted into the hospital, and then emerging as a new mom about a month later. A fun fact for all the moms who might be in this audience, I worked the whole day before this. I actually left for an appointment to view the hospital. I had an appointment to tour the hospital I was giving birth in. I then made my husband drive me home. And then like 45 minutes later was like, my contractions are now 4 minutes apart. We should maybe go back to the hospital we were just at. Producing that birth. Yeah, I ended up returning from maternity leave about 4 months later. And in that first year as a new mom, I had this really familiar feeling that I hadn't felt since, honestly, COVID. And I felt like I was sprinting this marathon. And I realized that my pre-baby routine was not gonna cut it. And I could not maintain this. And it's funny, before maternity leave, I had this fear that I just wouldn't be able to do my job in the same capacity. And I'd been EPing for years at this point, and I've been adapting to these changes in our studio, in our industry, and this just felt inherently different. And it's because this change was so much bigger, right? This change completely shifted my identity as a person. I was no longer just Kirsten, managing EP at Scholar, could focus on work. I was Daisy's mom now too. That is Daisy. She is a force. Watch out, world. Truly, I made a Scorpio and she is coming for all of us. Sweet little baby angel. But no, like for the first time in a really long time, I felt exhausted constantly and I was overwhelmed all the time. I felt like I was only showing up in like 50% of my life at work and home. I really struggled to be present. I spent so much time crying in the shower, oh my God. And I just never had enough time. I just felt like I was disappointing everyone. I wasn't doing enough. I wasn't doing it right. And so there are two really important things that I need to share with you. And the first is that I love being a mom. I went through a lot to become a mom, and I was raised by a working mom who owned her own company, right? And I credit her to my drive in shaping my perspective of what women are truly capable of. Being a mom to a daughter is the most important job. And yeah, I said job because I work 2 jobs, okay? I am a mom and I am a managing EP, but that job is the most important job I'm gonna do, period, end of story. The second is that all of those feelings that I was, they were just feelings. And I had a lot of feelings. I still have so many feelings all the time. But that narrative that I was playing out in my little doom spiral of a brain, there was no truth behind it. In reality, I had just gone through a significant and hormonal change, and it affected how I viewed myself, and it changed all my priorities. So, my transformative experience was motherhood. And I get that not everyone in here can relate to that or will ever be able to relate to that. But at some point in your lives, you are going to undergo an identity change. And so when that happens, you kind of do have these 2 options, right? You can try to meet that moment head on with a positive outlook, or you could just, I guess, let it slowly consume you like moss or something like that. But for me to make this work, I knew I had to kind of embrace this identity and transition, and I needed to reevaluate my routine and make some changes to some of the boundaries and habits I had set up. And so, when talking about boundaries and what that means, I think a bunch of us have talked about that, it's really important to note that it's all different things, right? It's physical, it's emotional, it's mental, it's these different limitations, and they're important at work and in your personal life. They're not one size fits all. You each get to decide what your boundaries are, and you get to change them. So, I leaned on my therapist a lot, and she helped me start to make these really simple and attainable goals for myself rather than this crazy list of all these things I needed to do. And so I'd love to just share a few things quickly that I found have worked for me, and I hope they maybe work for you too. Setting work hours. Technology is awesome. It makes us more productive. We get to work seamlessly, but that immediacy means that you're kind of always available, right? Not great. So I try to be online at 9. I'm off around 6. I have do not disturb set to kind of encourage people to schedule me during those working hours that I've set. I now have daycare drop off and pick up, and I have time blocked on my calendar, like a big hour-plus block, 2 times a day. And I'm happy to do those calls and stuff when I'm in the car, but when Daisy's in the car with me, I am not available. Do not call me. Do not be upset. I'm not answering you. But that end of the day slot, that's a really busy time. We're trying to get postings out. We might be trying to get a pitch out. And so I do my best to prioritize before I do that what my team or my clients might need from me, right? Because it's also not fair for me to ask my team to stay late to accommodate my schedule. They have lives too. So it's like these really simple things like drafting emails and remembering to schedule my Slacks, right? So that like when I do have to wrap things up after hours, I'm respecting other people's boundaries because I feel like, I send this email and there's this like, oh, Kirsten email, this is important. It's definitely not. There's no emergencies in advertising, spoiler alert. But it's like, there just aren't. But seriously, there aren't. It's pressure, your CD sends you something, you're like, oh shit. So yeah, just trying. Taking lunch, super simple. We have an hour blocked in the calendar. People are pretty good about not doing that, right? Sometimes something has to happen in that hour. But I think that step, right, it makes it a conversation. It just doesn't assume that you are available all the time. Taking breaks. I try to get up and take breaks throughout the day. I still work fully from home, right? So that might mean I do a quick errand. I am fighting my laundry pile forever. Or maybe I'm just stepping outside. And I've told folks a few times that when I do go on walks, I don't bring my phone with me. And I think every time it just completely freaks them out. But seriously, I don't have this impulsive need to just like scroll Instagram or check my email or check my Slack. Like I'm actually refocusing and resetting for that 15 minutes of time. Communicating your needs. Having a good work environment, it thrives on clear, consistent, honest, and open communication. Every day is super different, right? And I've also, I think Michelle just said this, I've started communicating with my team when I'm not in a great headspace. Our moods affect each other, especially when we work so closely together, and you never know what people are going through. You just don't know. And so I found that by being vulnerable and saying, hey, I have really high anxiety. Hey, I am super overwhelmed. It allows people to give me the space that I need that day. But it also shows them that it's totally okay to ask for that same space if they happen to need it too. And part of my job, it's like I do travel. I'm here with you guys right now, which is freaking awesome. I have sales trips. I do conferences, award shows. Sometimes I'm going to set with our directors. Getting up and me going pre-baby was super easy. I was like, bye, Robin. I'll see you when I get back. That's not the case anymore. It's like I have a family and I need to prioritize their needs. I need time for those logistics. And so I had this conversation when I came back that I would still travel, but I needed support and flexibility on what that looked like. And so, Daisy has joined me on a few shoots in LA. She's also come with me when I've had to travel. And no, I'm not letting my Scorpio toddler free in a screening or on set. She's not wreaking havoc. It's like her presence, you're never even gonna know she's there. She's never gonna impact a production or my ability to do my job. But sometimes having her with me is how I'm actually able to be there and be present to do my job. Asking for help. My sweet dear friend Antonio is always like, you're not an island, don't be an island. And I finally was like, okay, fine, I won't be an island. But it can be tricky. It's like in leadership, there's a fewer number of people I can go to that really have the full context of things that I might be able to share in that moment and who I can ask for help from. But if you want to be a good leader, you have to know how to delegate. And it's so essential that you learn how to ask for help and do that. And ultimately, we all have different strengths. And so relying on your different team members for different things, it empowers everyone. And it also increases your productivity. And unplugging. If your staff, take vacation. If you're freelance, make room for vacation. When you're on vacation, just be on your vacation. Do not talk to anyone. I have this, we've had a very long running joke that when you're on vacation, if you do respond, you owe everyone in leadership $25. So this is a boundary I'm really good at breaking. And I like to check in occasionally on what I would owe if they wanted to cash out. And the latest update there is I'm broaching like down payment on a luxury vehicle, maybe a condo by the end of the year, truly. Like, I don't know, I am bad at this. But I'm telling you this because we're all just doing the best we can. And as I'm up here telling you about navigating balance, the honesty of my balance the past 3 weeks, I have been living in a complete cloud of chaos at work and at home. It's been actually probably some of the most unbalanced weeks of my life to date. But I believe in what I'm saying, and I believe in these boundaries I'm setting up for myself. And I know that when I do maintain them, when I try to work on them, I'm not overwhelmed and I'm more efficient. And I'm actually in control. So it's just, we're all out here being human beings, just trying to survive. My therapist also is like, yo, Kirsten, that emotion is burnout, my friend. So it is just such a buzzword. And I constantly am like, no way, it would never affect me. And she's like, literally what you were describing is burnout. Like, you need to not for a minute. I started going to therapy in college, right? I've been with my therapist for 8 years. And she's equipped me with awesome tools, strategies, communication methods to successfully function in all aspects of my life. And I'm really good at protecting the self-care regimen. I have an appointment. Everyone knows what I'm up to. I've never been ashamed of being in therapy. I will literally, to clients, be like, yo, I'm in therapy. Do not talk to me right now. But it's great. It's like, again, not saying everyone here should immediately get a therapist and do that. It is not for everyone. But what it comes down to is it's important to protect our well-being. And if we're going to protect ourselves against like burnout and stuff, we need to find these different ways to actually work smarter and not harder. And we need to make that space for self-care. So this is one of my self-care regimens. And so it's like boundaries too. They are physical, mental, emotional. You can assess what you need in that moment. What you need today may look different tomorrow, next week, next month, next year. And so super quickly, just a couple of things to share with you that I found help for me. Rest and get sleep. This is a PSA from a woman whose sleep schedule is dictated by a toddler who is in a regression right now. But seriously though, rest drives success. So stop glorifying exhaustion, please and thank you. Yes. When you are fatigued, is your body telling you, slow down, shut it down? It is okay to prioritize rest. Hustle culture should not be encouraged. It should not be rewarded. It is not healthy. Socialize, make time to cultivate and nurture your relationships, friends and family. We all have different needs. I am super introverted. A lot of my friends know this and they respect it. But these close connections, they're really essential to well-being and they take a lot of time and energy to actually maintain. So just quality over quantity, mental awareness. Try meditating, has never worked for me. Reading a book, learning something new, or go binge watch something on TV. You need different things at different times and just listen to what you need in the moment. Did I truly need to start watching Severance 3 years late on a Tuesday at 9:30, 10 p.m.? Yes, I absolutely did. I did. It's totally logical. I also would love a melon party at some point. And communicate, let your emotions out, especially the really uncomfortable ones. It is so healthy for us to express and process our feelings and learn to say no. It is the most empowering thing you can do. Some of us are, we're all people pleasers, right? So we're self-inflicting this on ourselves. And then practice self-compassion. I just ask you to please give yourself the grace that you give to others. So in April, I turned 40. I've crossed over into this new dimension. It's the same. Yes, I'm here. An old ass woman in advertising. But seriously, part of that celebration was this girls' trip that I did with my best friend and my sister. And one of them is a really amazing tarot reader. And so I requested that she bring this deck for the trip and we do a reading. And she actually, despite being one of my best friends, didn't know I was talking here. She didn't know what I had picked to talk about because I had super procrastinated. But this is the question I asked her: what can I expect this year? And the abridged version of that goes a little something like this. I am on a path of new emotional discovery with my focus currently on my well-being and improving my mental state. Until now, my care has been focused on someone who needs me. The Page of Cups typically represents a child, which may be the catalyst for my current era of self-focus and to reclaim my identity. The Three of Coins is the basis of my reading. It's the message for me to take away from the cards. And the cards want me to know that by following my truth, it'll give me a stronger foundation to build on, and that moving forward, the actions that I'm gonna be taking are gonna support both my personal and my professional life. So as I move into this era of strengthening my situation, I need to know that when I am experiencing these feelings of pessimism and self-doubt, that there's always gonna be some positive aspect for me to look at. We're our own worst critics, and comparison is the thief of joy. My hopes and fears revolve around balance. Temperance is the ultimate formula to happiness, but ultimately it urges balance between all aspects of our life. And right now I'm on a journey of discovering the balance and making changes to these boundaries to create a better life balance. My outcome card is the magician. It's a positive card for creating something seemingly out of nowhere. I already have all these tools at my disposal to make magic, and it may require just a little bit of illusion, such as not always feeling super confident, but no one's gonna ever see that side of the situation unless I choose to reveal it. Magic is wonderful, right? It's all about perception. Each one of us has the ability and the tools in our lives to create magic. So I guess I do have that crystal ball after all. It is in the cards, so thank you guys.